King David had seen many advisors, but none like Ahithophel. His wisdom was unparalleled, his strategy so precise that his words were regarded as divine guidance. Kings might wage wars over land, but the true power was in counsel. And in this, Ahithophel was unmatched. For years, he had been David's most trusted strategist, the man whose advice shaped Israel's victories and policies. And yet, for all his wisdom, for all his influence, there was a wound inside him, one that no amount of political power could heal. Ahithophel's rebellion against David is one of the most intriguing betrayals in the Bible, woven with personal vengeance, political ambition, and divine sovereignty. To fully understand why he turned against David, we must explore his background, his possible motivations, his role in Absalom's rebellion, and his ultimate downfall. Who was Ahithophel? Ahithophel was a highly esteemed counselor in David's court. His wisdom was so renowned that his advice was considered almost as if it came from God himself. 2 Samuel 16:23. He served as one of David's closest advisors, helping to shape the king's policies and military strategies. However, despite his influential role in David's administration, something made him switch sides and align himself with Absalom, David's son and political adversary. Ahithophel's family and the Bathsheba connection. One of the key theories explaining Ahithophel's betrayal is his relationship with Bathsheba. The Bible identifies Ahithophel as the father of Eliam, 2 Samuel 23:34, and in 2 Samuel 11:3, we learn that Bathsheba was the daughter of Eliam. This means that Ahithophel was Bathsheba's grandfather. Now, before we go any even further, let's retrace our steps and go back to the beginning, where the problem of Ahithophel originally started. It was the season when kings went to war. The air over Jerusalem was thick with the scent of spring, the time when warriors rode out to expand borders, defend territories, and prove their might. But this year, King David had not gone. Instead, he had remained in the comfort of his palace, sending his commander, Joab, to lead the armies of Israel against the Ammonites. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, David found himself restless. He rose from his bed and wandered onto the rooftop of his palace. From this vantage point, he could see the rooftops of his city, the heart of his kingdom. Then, his eyes caught something, or rather, someone. There, in the fading light, was a woman bathing. The water shimmered against her skin, reflecting the golden hues of the sunset. Her beauty was striking, her form graceful. David's breath hitched. He turned away, then looked again. Desire coiled in his chest. "Who is she?" he asked a nearby servant. The response came cautiously. "She is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam and wife of Uriah the Hittite." David knew both names well. Eliam was the son of Ahithophel, one of his most trusted advisors. Uriah was no mere soldier. He was one of David's elite warriors, a man of unwavering loyalty. But in that moment, it did not matter. "Bring her to me," David commanded. The servant hesitated but obeyed. Bathsheba arrived at the palace, her heart pounding. A summons from the king was not something one ignored. She stood before him, wrapped in a simple robe, her damp hair cascading over her shoulders. David stepped toward her, his gaze lingering. "You are very beautiful," he murmured. "My lord, why have you sent for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David did not answer with words. He reached out, his hand brushing against hers. The tension in the room thickened. Bathsheba hesitated. He was the king, the chosen of God. Who was she to resist? What happened next was inevitable. When the night ended, David sent her home. It was done. One he thought would fade with time. Until weeks later, when a message arrived. I am pregnant. David felt the weight of the words crash down on him like a thunderclap. Panic surged through him. This could not be. Uriah was at war. There would be questions, whispers. His sin would be exposed. There was only one way to fix it. David summoned Uriah from the battlefield, masking his true intentions behind a veil of concern. How is the war progressing? He asked casually as Uriah stood before him, dust from the battlefield still clinging to his armor. It fares well, my lord, Uriah answered. His eyes were sharp, his stance disciplined. He was a warrior through and through, devoted to Israel and to his brothers in arms. David forced a smile. You have served well. Go home, rest, and be with your wife. He waved a hand and a gift was sent after Uriah, a feast, wine, comforts of home. But Uriah did not go home. That night he slept among the palace guards. When David heard, frustration stirred within him. Why did you not go home? He demanded the next day. Uriah stood firm. The ark of God, Israel and Judah, are intense. My lord Joab and my fellow soldiers sleep in open fields. Shall I then go to my house, eat, drink, and lie with my wife? I will not do such a thing. David clenched his jaw. Uriah's integrity was unshakable. Plan B then. That evening, David invited Uriah to a grand feast, ensuring his cup never emptied. Uriah drank deeply, laughter ringing in the halls. By the end of the night, he was drunk, yet still, he did not go home. David knew then that deception would not work. Murder would have to do. David penned a letter to Joab, his most trusted general. The words were sharp, calculated, and merciless. Set Uriah in the forefront of the fiercest battle, then withdraw from him, that he may be struck down and die. He folded the parchment, sealed it with his royal emblem, and handed it to Uriah himself. With unwavering loyalty, Uriah carried his own death warrant back to the battlefield. Joab obeyed the king's orders. In the next assault, Uriah was placed at the front lines. When the enemy counterattacked, Joab withdrew the other soldiers. Uriah, left vulnerable, fought valiantly, but the odds were insurmountable. He fell, his blood soaking the earth. The message of his death arrived in Jerusalem. David received it with a solemn nod. Tell Joab not to be discouraged, he said. The sword devours one as well as another. Bathsheba mourned for her husband. When the mourning period ended, David took her as his wife. The scandal had been buried. To the people, it might have seemed like an act of compassion, but the Lord saw everything. The prophet Nathan entered the throne room unannounced. His face was stern, his eyes piercing. I have a matter to bring before the king, he said. David, unaware of what was to come, leaned forward. Speak. There were 2 men in a city, Nathan began. One was rich and had many sheep and cattle. The other was poor and had only one little lamb, which he loved dearly. It ate from his plate, drank from his cup, and lay in his arms like a daughter. But one day, a traveler came to the rich man. Instead of taking from his own flocks, he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for his guest. David's fury ignited. That man deserves to die, he roared. He shall repay 4 times over for what he has done. Then Nathan turned his gaze upon him and uttered the words that shattered David's soul. You are the man. Silence fell over the room. David's breath caught in his throat. Nathan's voice thundered. You have despised the word of the Lord. You took Uriah's wife. You had him struck down. Now the sword shall never depart from your house." David fell to his knees. "I have sinned against the Lord," he whispered. Yet despite his sin, God showed mercy. David would not die, but his child with Bathsheba would. It had begun with whispers in the palace. Servants spoke in hushed tones, their voices tinged with scandal. David had done something terrible, something that even Ahithophel, a man of great patience and political understanding, could not ignore. When he heard the name Bathsheba, his blood ran cold. She was the daughter of Eliab, Ahithophel's own son. He had watched her grow, a beautiful and intelligent young woman, raised with dignity. She had been married to Uriah the Hittite, a loyal soldier of David's army, a man of unwavering integrity, and then David had taken her. The king had seen her bathing, and in that moment, he had decided that his desire was more important than her honor, her husband's devotion, or the laws of God. He sent for her, took her to his chambers, and when his actions led to pregnancy, he devised a plan to cover his sin. Uriah had been recalled from battle under the pretense of a reward. But when the honorable man refused to lie with his wife while his fellow soldiers fought in the field, David orchestrated his death. Ahithophel had served David through wars and crises, had counseled him in matters of state, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The king, the man whom he had trusted, had repaid his loyalty by staining his family's honor with blood and betrayal. He said nothing. He continued to serve, his lips sealed, but the fire in his heart did not fade. Imagine an elderly statesman who has served the king faithfully for years, suddenly seeing his own granddaughter taken advantage of, and his family's name tarnished. Worse still, David orchestrated Uriah's death in cold blood, disguising it as a battle casualty. Ahithophel may have viewed this not just as a personal affront, but also as a moral outrage. While the Bible does not explicitly state that Ahithophel's betrayal was fueled by revenge, this theory aligns well with the timing of events. Time passed. David ruled, but the stain of his actions remained. The prophet Nathan had confronted him, and though David repented, the consequences of his sin could not be undone. And then, like a shadow creeping over the land, Absalom emerged. The young prince had always been charismatic, a man of striking beauty and natural leadership. He had the ability to turn heads, to make the people adore him. But more than that, he had ambition. And Ahithophel saw in him an opportunity, a way to punish David for what he had done. For years, Absalom positioned himself at the gates of Jerusalem, listening to the grievances of the people. "If only I were judge in the land," he would say, "then everyone with a complaint could come to me, and I would give them justice." He stole the hearts of the people, and Ahithophel watched in silence. And then, at last, the moment came. Absalom declared himself king in Hebron. The rebellion had begun. Without hesitation, Ahithophel left David's court and joined the prince. He knew that his defection would be seen as a devastating blow. His wisdom had been David's greatest asset, and now it belonged to his enemy. When he arrived in Absalom's camp, the young prince welcomed him with open arms. Together, they would end David's reign. Beyond personal revenge, Ahithophel's defection might have also been driven by political calculations. Ahithophel, being a shrewd political strategist, might have sensed a shift in power. If Absalom succeeded, Aligning with him early would ensure Ahithophel retained his influence in the new administration. When Absalom declared himself king in Hebron and launched his rebellion against David, 2 Samuel 15:10-12, Ahithophel did not hesitate. He immediately joined the usurper. This suggests that Ahithophel was either 1. A key conspirator in the rebellion from the start, possibly even encouraging Absalom to rebel. 2. A last-minute defector who saw an opportunity and seized it. The speed of Ahithophel's defection suggests he had already lost confidence in David's leadership. Perhaps he viewed David as a weak and compromised king, undeserving of continued loyalty. Ahithophel wasted no time. "You must make a statement," he told Absalom, "one so bold that all of Israel will know that you cannot be reconciled with your father." Absalom leaned in, eager. "Take your father's concubines," Ahithophel said. "Lay with them in public, in the sight of all Israel." Absalom hesitated. This was not merely a private insult, it was a declaration of dominance. In the ancient world, to take a king's concubines was to claim his throne. If he did this, there would be no turning back. And yet, Ahithophel's words carried the weight of wisdom. He had never been wrong before. So a tent was pitched on the palace rooftop, the very place where David had first seen Bathsheba. And there, in the view of the people, Absalom did as Ahithophel advised. David, hearing the news, tore his garments. His son had committed an abomination, and yet, in his heart, David knew this was the fulfillment of God's judgment. But Ahithophel was not done. "The time to strike is now," he urged. "Let me take 12,000 men. Tonight, while David is weary and discouraged, I will pursue him. He will be afraid, his men will scatter, and I will kill him with my own hands." It was a perfect plan. Fast, decisive, and merciless. If Absalom approved, the rebellion would be over before it truly began. But then came Hushai. Hushai the Archite was another of David's trusted advisors. But unlike Ahithophel, his loyalty never wavered. He had managed to infiltrate Absalom's camp, feigning support while secretly working to sabotage the rebellion. When Absalom sought a second opinion, Hushai played on his pride. "You know your father," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "He is a warrior, a man of blood. Right now he is not sleeping. He is hiding, waiting to strike. If you attack tonight, you will walk into a trap." Absalom's confidence wavered. He had spent years hearing tales of his father's battles, of his cunning on the battlefield. What if Hushai was right? Instead, Hushai continued, "Gather all of Israel into one mighty army. Then, when you have overwhelming force, crush David in one final blow." Absalom nodded, pleased. The idea of leading a great army, of basking in the glory of battle, appealed to his vanity. And so, he rejected Ahithophel's advice. When the news reached Ahithophel, he did not rage. He did not beg for Absalom to reconsider. He simply understood. The rebellion was lost. David would have time to regroup, to gather his warriors. And when the battle came, Absalom would fall. And Ahithophel would be executed for treason. He left the camp without a word. Instead of waiting for his fate, Ahithophel took matters into his own hands, returning to his home. He put his affairs in order. He wrote letters, gave instructions, and prepared for the inevitable. Then, in the quiet of his own house, he found a rope, fastened it securely, and ended his life. His wisdom had guided kings. His counsel had shaped nations. And yet, in the end, He had been undone by the very thing he had always prided himself on, his mind. Ahithophel had always been a man who knew the outcome before it arrived, and this time he knew it was over. His suicide was a final act of control. Rather than face humiliation and execution, he ended his own life with dignity. It was the ultimate expression of his bitterness and disillusionment. As he hung there, lifeless, the kingdom moved on. David would return to his throne. Absalom would meet his end. And Ahithophel, once the greatest counselor in Israel, would be remembered not for his wisdom, but for his betrayal. So, why did Ahithophel rebel? Ahithophel's betrayal of David was likely driven by a combination of personal vengeance, political ambition, and divine providence. 1. Personal revenge. David's sin with Bathsheba and Uriah deeply wounded Ahithophel's family honor. 2. Political ambition. He saw Absalom as the future and wanted to align with the winning side. 3. Divine sovereignty. God ensured that Ahithophel's wisdom was rejected, leading to his downfall. Ahithophel's story is a tragic warning. Bitterness and unchecked ambition can lead even the wisest of men to destruction. Thank you for watching. God bless you.
Thank you for watching. Kindly like, comment, and subscribe. Click on the notification bell so you can be alerted anytime a new video is uploaded. And please don't forget, share and be a blessing to someone. God richly bless you. Shalom.